Proverbs 13:22 instructs us that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And there can be this idea that that's only for the very wealthy. In fact, the general response can often be along the lines of, I wish I could, to, it's a nice idea. But if we actually understood God's instruction and what He intended, we would begin to realize this is attainable for each one of God's people. Unfortunately, my experience has been over the years, as I've traveled all over the world, generally speaking, what I have found is that people who love God, who work hard, try their best to make the most of life, make the decisions they need to make, but actually don't experience the reality of God's blessings at work in their life. That it's an elusive idea that they never actually see the realization of in their life. So we will explore, both for ourselves and the next generation, understanding what God's intention is, because as we begin to grasp it, we'll find that it will transform our mindset and can transform, if we'll embrace it, our life ourselves. And in doing so, provide a foundation of success for that next generation. It will empower the next generation. See, when God says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, we tend to think of just the outcome, just the gift. We think of an inheritance as the gift, the money, the funds, the resources, real estate, a house, whatever it may be. But actually, if we understand, what we find is that actual outcome, that actual gift, is actually the lesser part of the inheritance. In fact, the much greater, more valuable part of the inheritance is the ability to possess. See, when God says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, it's not just that gift, but more importantly, it's training them and teaching them, giving them the ability to possess all that God has for them. And in fact, as we go through this, what we'll see is, once that skill has been developed, once they realize that, they have that, then actually any gift that we give actually is just an accelerator to supercharge their experience, to truly empower them. So when we talk about the ability to possess, a good way to look at it, to think of it, is in the Old Testament, when God said to His people, He was giving them the promised land. And he says this, so he says He's given it to them. And in fact, He goes on and says, and He will defeat every enemy. In other words, He will go before them. He's given it to them. He'll go before them. And He will knock down every challenge and every obstacle. But it goes on and says, and you will defeat them. You'll push them out. In other words, they had to learn to possess, to take possession of what God had promised to them. In fact, God actually called it their inheritance. And what we see is, not only did God say He would give it to them, but He also said He would give it to them little by little as they grew in strength and maturity. That He said He wouldn't give it to them all at once because certain problems would creep up. They wouldn't be ready for it. But God did say He would give it to them little by little. And what we see is that learning to take possession, actually, that learning to rely on God, that faith, that learning to take possession was actually more important, more valuable than the promised land itself. And so as we go through this series, what we'll see in very straightforward terms is that learning for ourselves and those future generations how to take possession of what God has, the faithfulness required, the decisions that get made, that process is so much more valuable than the actual gift we give them. That if we give them that skill set, they are truly set up for success. And then again, any gift that comes along with it actually just empowers. It's the accelerator for all of their life mission, what God has for them. In Deuteronomy 8:18, God says He gives us the power to get wealth. And what we see is that power to get wealth is we have to go get it. It's not just what we earn, but wealth is not actually money. It's actually strength. It's the ability to fulfill all that God has for them. So in this series, we will share in very straightforward terms techniques for ourselves and that next generation on how to begin to build that legacy, to build next generation wealth, to see it transform, again, not only our thinking, but our experience, and have that profound impact on the next generation.